Well, hello and welcome to this episode of the Terri Cole Show. This is a super special episode because I have a repeat guest, Dr. Daniel Amen, who is a psychiatrist, and he really is a brain health expert, probably the most well-known brain health expert, maybe even in the world. He has a new book out called You Happier, the 7 Neuroscience Secrets of Feeling Good based on your brain type. So I want to tell you a little bit about Dr. Amen. If you don't know him, his mission is to end mental illness by creating a revolution in brain health. So rather than looking at mental illness as an illness, it's the same way we look at like physical health, right? That you can do something about physical health. Well, he's doing all of these brain scans and basically proving that what we eat and what we think and how we sleep and whether we hydrate or not and how our relationships are, all of those things, whether we drink, whether we do drugs, all of those things impact our brain health. And that impacts our mood and how we feel. So in this interview, we talk all about the 7 secrets, the things that you can do to have a healthier brain. He's done 200,000 brain scans and has been comparing them for years. So I'm just so excited about this book, You Happier. I hope that you enjoy this interview with Dr. Daniel Amen as much as I enjoyed interviewing my pal. I'm super, super psyched to welcome Dr. Daniel Amen back to the Terri Cole Show. He has a brand new book out right here. Welcome back, Daniel.
Hi, Terri. So great to see you. Makes me happy to be with you.
Speaking of happiness, same. So let's talk about this amazing book, shall we? Why now for You Happier?
Well, Americans are the unhappiest they have been since the Great Depression. And it just seems like it's not stopping. The pandemic, the societal unrest, the political divide, now the war in Ukraine, we're being bombarded with death and terror consistently. But there's strategies to be happier. So people can be happier even in the middle of a terrible time. Why do I say that? I loved this piece right at the beginning of the pandemic. A friend of mine sent me a piece from C.S. Lewis from 1948 on the atomic bomb. And he's like, why are you so upset? Because the scientists have found yet another way to kill us. Don't you remember in the 16th century when the plague visited London almost every year? Or you could have lived in a Scandinavian time when at any night Viking raiders could have come and slit your throats. If the bomb is going to come, let it find us doing sensible and human things. The problem is with social media and with the news, we know about every terrible thing that happens in the world almost instantaneously. And that makes us think what are uncommon events are common in the human brain. And I've been a psychiatrist for 40 years. I've looked at over 200,000 brains. We do imaging at Amen Clinics. And I'm like, no, there's a neuroscience to happiness. And it's not what people are told. In fact, there's so many lies of happiness. Like Coca-Cola's slogan is open happiness. Well, that's a lie because it's open illness. When you're opening sugar water, that's opening diabetes, heart disease, obesity, depression. Or happy meals. They're not happy. They're sad meals because they're pro-inflammatory with the cheap oils and sugar and foods that quickly turn to sugar. Or, Bobby McFerrin's song, I used to love it so much, Don't Worry, Be Happy. It's a Grammy Award-winning song. But those are the people that are the unhappiest, the people who have low levels of anxiety because they consistently make bad decisions that get them divorced or get them to file bankruptcy, or their health is not good. You need some anxiety, right? Don't worry, be happy is the prescription for depression. And so I just wanted to do something. A lot of books have been written on happiness. I really wanted to weigh in. Plus, I wanted to be happier. So it's like, well, why not study? It was right at the beginning of the pandemic. I lost my dad and I had to close my Manhattan clinic for a month. There's a lot of reasons to be unhappy. And I'm like, oh no, there's a science to this, and I'm going to learn it and share it.
All right, so amazing. But let's start with, I'm so curious about what got you, because you're a psychiatrist by trade, what got you into brain imaging?
So my path was different. When I turned 18, the government had a draft, and I became an infantry medic where my love of medicine was born. But about a year into it, I realized I didn't like being shot at. That, you know, if you have that little red cross on your helmet, they shoot at you first. And I'm like, no, I don't like that. So I got myself retrained as an x-ray technician. And our professors used to always say, how do you know unless you look? And so I loved imaging. I just thought it was so fun. And then when I went to medical school, I fell in love with psychiatry because someone I loved tried to kill herself. And I took her to see a wonderful psychiatrist. And I came to realize if he helped her, it wouldn't just help her, that ultimately it would help her children and even her grandchildren. And I fell in love with psychiatry, the only medical specialty that never looks at the organ it treats. And I knew it was wrong. I just had no idea I'd be part of the change. And so when I had the opportunity 30 years ago to look, I was, no kidding, happy, like a little kid, so excited that, you know, you would come to me and say, oh, I have a bad temper, or I'm depressed, or I have panic attacks, or I can't focus in school. And I would look at your brain. And it was so helpful. Like the first thing I learned is mild traumatic brain injury ruins people's lives, and nobody knows about it because they see psychiatrists or psychologists who never look at their brain. And if we can fix the head injury, then your mood is better, you're happier. And then I learned that, in fact, I'm in Justin Bieber's docuseries Seasons, and I love him. And I've been his doctor for like 10 years. And he, you know, like many of our young stars, sometimes he'll come and sometimes he won't. And sometimes he'll do what I said, most of the time he won't. But when he went through a dark place, he came into my office. He said, I think I get it. My brain is an organ like my heart is an organ. That's what you're trying to tell me. If you told me I had heart problems, I'd do everything you said. He said, I'm going to do everything you say. And he just got better. I mean, I'm like so happy for him. But we have to start seeing the brain is an organ that creates happiness or sadness. The brain is an organ that creates our love life. The brain is an organ that creates our financial life. The brain is an organ that creates our health. And when it works right, you work right. So think of it like most people see cardiologists have never had a heart attack. They're there to prevent them. I see a day when mental health professionals, we're going to stop calling them that, we're going to call them brain health professionals, that they come to us not because they're depressed, but because they have depression in their family and they don't want to be depressed. I see a day where we're working in schools. We already have a brand new preschool through grade 1 course and a high school course on how to teach kids to love and care for their brains,
Amazing.
which decrease drug, alcohol, and tobacco use, decrease depression, and improve self-esteem. I want to break the current paradigm. You have these 6 symptoms, so you're depressed. So you're going to take an antidepressant. It's the wrong paradigm. I want you to come in, we'll assess your brain, we'll teach you to love and care for your brain, and then we'll teach you to manage your mind. And it's a whole new way of getting and keeping people healthy and well.
What I love so much about all of that, Daniel, is that the empowerment piece for the client, for the patient, because before all the power was somewhere else, right? We didn't know what to do. Why were we sad or why were we depressed? It's like this mysterious something, something. And you're really shedding light on what is happening, but what we as just lay people can do and to take care of ourselves. But there's this seems to be very little education about the impact of, let's just say, diet and nutrition on mental health. And I know you're very passionate about that. You talk about that in the book. So can you talk a little bit about that to us?
I think of people in four big circles. That what's your biology? And that's why looking at the brain is so important. And in the biological circle, it's things like genetics and physical health and head trauma, but it's also diet. And the book is based on these 7 secrets, the things people aren't talking about when it comes to happiness. And secret number 4 is love food that loves you back, that you're in a relationship with food. And both you and I think we've been in bad relationships in the past, and I'm not doing it anymore. And I give everybody your book, love your book, Boundary Boss. But, we almost need to write Boundary Boss for food.
Definitely.
Because people are in bad relationships with food and they don't have appropriate boundaries. Because people are oh, but I love sugar. I had one woman once tell me I'd rather get Alzheimer's disease than give up sugar.
My God.
And I chuckled and I went, did you date the bad boys in high school? Because that's a bad relationship that you have. You're in love with something that steals your mind. And, I might love Rocky Road ice cream, but it doesn't love me back. And I'm not doing bad relationships anymore. I'm married to my best friend, and I'm damn sure not doing it with food. And so there's a linear correlation between the number of fruits and vegetables you eat a day and your level of happiness.
That is so not surprising in one respect, but it's kind of mind-blowing. And I love your whole online thing. I'm always stalking you and Tana because you are always sharing gems of wisdom. And even though I'm reading all your stuff, it's still stuff that I go, oh my God, I never thought about it that way. And people can't stop asking you if they could just have a little bit of booze or a little bit of weed, or can they just can't you just tell them it's good for their brain? And you're like, I'm not judging you. I'm just telling you what the science says. So talk a little bit, if you would, about alcohol and I guess, I don't know what we call weed, just weed, I guess, on the brain.
Yeah, so I have no dog in the fight. Alcohol is bad for your brain. Just any alcohol is bad for your brain. And ever since I started looking at the brain, I saw that drinkers had a smaller brain. And when it comes to your brain, size matters. It's the only organ where size really does matter. And so I've been saying this for 30 years, ever since I started looking at scans. And then last year, the biggest blog I wrote was called I Told You So. And I start with when I met Tana 16 years ago, she told me, I'll never tell you I told you so. She lied. It's her favorite thing to say. And last year, the American Cancer Society came out and said, you shouldn't drink because any alcohol is related to an increase in 7 different kinds of cancer. Cancer obviously is bad for your brain. Plus, you and I see nonstop the impact of alcohol on relationships, on health, on decision making. And I'm horrified when you watch Netflix or Prime or whatever, alcohol is everywhere. And you just wonder, is it the alcohol industry supporting these shows? But the more people drink on TV, the more bad decisions they make. And yes, the more drama there is. But do you really want that in your life? Marijuana, I've never been a fan of it because it decreases frontal lobe function and it decreases cerebellar function. I published a study in the Journal of Alzheimer's Disease on 1,000 marijuana users. We compared them to our healthy group who'd never used. Every area of their brain, especially their memory center, was lower in blood flow. There's so many other ways to be relaxed, from meditation, hypnosis, diaphragmatic breathing, supplements like GABA, magnesium, theanine, ashwagandha, saffron, that let's just, I'm a fan of legalizing it. Please don't put them in jail that use it. What a waste. But let's not say it's good for us. Teenagers who use marijuana have a 450% increased risk of becoming psychotic. Teenagers who use marijuana in their 20s have a significantly higher risk of anxiety disorders, depression, and suicide. Why can't we teach people to love their brains? And then, what are natural ways to calm it down? Specifically, diaphragmatic breathing. I talk about that in the book in a very specific pattern. We have a new app coming out soon where I have all these breathing protocols. It's called Happy Brain. Yeah. And for example, if you want to calm yourself, you want to break a panic attack in under 2 minutes, take a 4-second breath in, hold it for a second, and then take 8 seconds to breathe out and hold it for a second. Do that 10 times. And you're going to feel so much happier, so much calmer. And it puts, like you said earlier, it puts the control inside you rather than give me Klonopin or give me a Xanax. I don't prescribe those things because they hurt people. Right. Why would I start something that you can't stop? How does that make any sense? And getting off benzos is one of the most horrible things people go through. It's the easy answer, but it's not easy. It's the prescription for a hard road.
It is. And it is so hard getting off from, experience with clients. Let's talk a little bit, though, about the importance of hydration. So we talk about this in the book as well. So how important is it to drink water?
Well, if you want to be less anxious, if you want to be happier, if you want to be more coordinated, hydration is absolutely essential. Your body is 70% water. Your brain is 80% water. And so if you want to think right, you want to think about watering your brain on a regular basis.
So what does that mean, actually? Because you know how people will be like, Liz Josephsberg says, drink 100 ounces of water a day, which is what I do. But what do you say?
Half your weight in ounces. So I'm 150 pounds. I need to make sure I drink at least 75 ounces a day. Now, if you're morbidly obese, that might not calculate right. That may decrease your electrolytes. So it doesn't count if you're morbidly obese. But for most people, about half your weight in ounces.
So let's talk a little bit about, so we have all these things happening in the world, as you mentioned. So how can people cultivate happiness when there's so much bad going on?
So I think of people in 4 big circles, and I talk about this in the book. So that we have a biological circle. So that's get your brain and body healthy, so much likelier to be happy. And then there's a psychological circle, which is development, and I call them ants, automatic negative thoughts. So becoming a master anteater is critical. Whenever you feel sad or mad or nervous or out of control, write down what you're thinking. And then I love Byron Katie's work. I talk about these 5 questions. I'm like, you need to dig into it. If you really want to be happy, write down 100 of your worst thoughts and then question each of them. And the meditation is actually take the worst thought you have. I'm not enough is the most common of all the thoughts. I mean, can you imagine Justin Bieber and Miley Cyrus and a lot of the other famous people who've gone public that I've been their doctor? They have that thought. And I sort of look at them and like, if you have this thought, there is no hope.
Or everybody has this thought.
And it's, I am enough. And that's the 5th question. And meditate on that. It'll just help you so much. A new technique for this book under the psychological circle is give your mind a name. I love this so much because there's research that shows if you can gain psychological distance from the noise in your head, that your mind doesn't bother you as much. Because I don't know if you were good at talking back to your parents when you were a teenager, but I was excellent. My mother still talks about it. But no one ever taught me to talk back to myself. And so mental discipline is so important. And also in that section of the book, I talk about positivity bias training. Start every day with today is going to be a great day. End every day with what went well today. Because where you bring your attention always determines how you feel. And so I'm nudging my mind, looking for what's right, not just what's wrong. The social circle, that's the 3rd circle, and this is where Boundary Boss is so great, is the strategy I put for that one is notice what you like about other people more than what you don't. And so this is really about the idea of giving happiness away, because I know exactly how to make Tana sad. I know how to make her angry. I know how to make her withholding. And I totally choose not to go there, right? And it's not manipulative. It's I'm using my power. And am I going to use my power to notice what I like or to notice what I don't like? And in that way, we shape the behavior of the people we care about.
It's so interesting, though, about what you're saying with, you could choose to make her sad, you don't. That I always think about healthy relationships and love relationships. Of course, we in the intimate relationship with that other person, of course, we know the meanest thing we could say to them, right? We know their Achilles heel. We know all of that. And it's pedestrian to hit it, I think, kind of. And love tells me I would never do that, even if I'm mad, never that thing, because you can't take it back,
And the brain has memory.
Indeed.
And a woman's memory is stronger than a male's memory. Like she'll remember it for 15 years. So that's another good reason not to be drinking alcohol, because all of us have bad thoughts. All of us have weird, crazy, stupid, sexual, violent thoughts that nobody should ever hear. And the problem is when you drink is they get out and the other person will remember them. And we even have thoughts that we don't believe. It's like, oh, that's a crazy thought. Please don't say that. But when they get out, the other person thinks you believe that. And even though you apologize, they're still suspicious.
Oh, yeah.
That you really think that, and you're reinforcing the worst thing I think about myself.
Indeed.
And it's so painful. And with a better brain, you're just more thoughtful, and which means your relationships are better, which leads us to the fourth circle, which is the spiritual circle, which most psychiatrists would never touch. But it's like, why do you care? Why are you on the planet? What is your deepest sense of meaning and purpose? And each of the strategies in the book have a question. And I love this question. It's, does it fit? Does my behavior fit the goals, the values, the purpose of my life? And there's this very cool exercise called the one-page miracle, where you write down in these four circles, what do you want? And then every day you just ask yourself, is my behavior getting me what I want? So it's not what you should do, right? That doesn't really work that well. You tell people what they should do. But when you ask them what they want, and if their behavior fits, now there's serious motivation in that, without shame, without guilt.
What I love what you've done in this book, though, Daniel, is you have made it so accessible with the exercises, with the questions, that if you listening really want to be happier, I promise you, this is a how-to guide where I know people can get the book everywhere, anywhere. Tell us how they can find you, how they can find the book.
Well, if they pre-order the book or order it the first week it's out, they go to youhappier.com. We actually have 4 free gifts for them, and they're like big gifts. They get a bottle of happy saffron. So we didn't talk about secret number 3 is supplement your happiness. And my favorite supplements for happiness are saffron, zinc, and curcumin. All 3 of them individually have been shown to boost mood. I created a product at BrainMD called Happy Saffron that people just love. And so if they pre-order the book, all they have to do is give us their receipt. We'll send them, and pay for the shipping, a bottle of Happy Saffron. Plus, Amazing. They get our 30-day happiness challenge, which increases happiness 30%. We had 32,000 people sign up, and we studied that group. For every day for 30 days, they get a short video on how to plant the ideas from the book into their lives, and a workbook to go along with it. And Tana wrote a new cookbook for the book called You Happier, Recipes Based on Your Brain Type.
Amazing. And also tell them where they can take the brain type test.
So at Brain Health Assessment, one of the big ideas in the book is happiness is different for everybody. Some people are happy jumping out of airplanes. For other people, that would just make them miserable. And so knowing your brain type is critical to knowing what makes you uniquely happy. And you want to know the brain type of your partner and your children, because you want to know, well, how can I serve them best, rather than just looking for what makes me happy.
I love it so much. Thank you so much, my friend. I'm so excited about that. This is going to be birthed out into the world. I really appreciate you spending so much time with us today. All of the links, you guys, are going to be in the show notes for you to get all the good stuff that you want to get from Dr. Daniel Amen. Thank you, Daniel. I will see you soon.
Thanks, Terry. What a joy.